colonization has had detrimental effects on the health of Indigenous people in Canada. Indigenous people today are more susceptible to physical and mental diseases due to intergenerational trauma, the Indian Act, modern processed diets, and sedentary lifestyles, to name a few. This is Decolonizing Wellness, and in this series, I'll embark on an experimental journey of weaving together Western knowledge and Indigenous ways of knowing in the pursuit of a healthier future for my people. As a Syilx man on my second term of Chief and Council for the Okanagan Indian Band, I have gained a new perspective and passion for giving back to my community. These lifestyle-related diseases are prevalent in many Indigenous communities due to the effects of colonization. Through this docu-series, I'll be connecting with elders and knowledge keepers to gather information on health. Indigenous health is an issue that has always hit home to me because my grandmother, who was a Kamloops residential school survivor, passed away from issues related to diabetes when I was 15. I feel the aches and pains in my current lifestyle. Most days I wake up feeling tired and stiff. I don't feel motivated to exercise, and not exercising usually leads me into not eating healthy. The combination of not exercising and not eating good foods makes me feel anxious. I don't know about you, but the first thing I do when I feel this way is go straight to stimulants. Coffee, mindless scrolling on my phone, eating junk food. All these things have something in common: instant gratification. In this day and age, it is almost impossible to live 100% like my ancestors. This experiment is long overdue, and Indigenous health is in a crisis. I'll experiment with applying a two-eyed seeing approach to wellness and see if I can feel amazing by incorporating both traditional and Western methods. They say we are just spiritual beings living a human experience. So how can I make the most out of this human experience? I want to feel sharp mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally.
So this is episode 1 of Decolonizing Wellness. I am Shayla Rain, and I am here with my amazing partner and co-host,
Ryan Oliverius. So I'm excited for this journey of decolonizing wellness and see where it takes me over the next few months. And
So what is decolonizing wellness to you?
So first of all, colonialism has had damaging effects on Indigenous people in Canada. So for me, decolonizing wellness is incorporating traditional knowledge and ways of being to live a good life, and a little more like my ancestors did. But obviously we can't live 100% like our ancestors. So throughout this journey, I'll be using a two-eyed seeing approach, which will incorporate Western ways of being along with my traditional Indigenous ways of being and weave them together to live my best life, It's basically it. Straightforward, simple.
Great. So what made you want to start decolonizing wellness?
So there was a lot of reasons why I wanted to start decolonizing wellness. But first of all, I grew up as a quite overweight kid. I struggled with my weight most of my life up until I was about 15 years old. And at that point, I was playing a lot of sports. I was playing football, basketball, and lacrosse. And then I started incorporating weight training and going to the gym and stuff like that. And at this point, I started trying to eat healthier as well. But I would say one of the biggest reasons why I want to start decolonizing wellness is because of my grandma. My grandma was a big support in my life, and she was a really important person in my life. And she unfortunately passed when I was 15 through issues and struggles with diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And ever since I've known her from when I was born, she struggled with type 2 diabetes, and I've always seen her under that light as well. But she was always so uplifting and happy, and she was such a bright and amazing person. And so that really impacted me. That was my first real loss in my life. And it just pushed me to want to be a healthier person, you know, and be able to pass on some of the knowledge that I know now and maybe share it with other people, and then also learn along the way and become the best version of myself and become like the healthiest version of myself as well in all aspects of my life.
Yeah. I think that type 2 diabetes is something that a lot of Indigenous people have to deal with. Both of my grandparents have type 2 diabetes. So growing up, I would see my Muslim and Gukum like taking like their blood sugar levels like first thing in the morning. I never realized how prevalent that was within Indigenous communities until university. And then I learned in university that when it comes to getting type 2 diabetes, the risk for Indigenous people is as high as 80% in their lifetime. And I read that that's because of colonization. It's because of through the Indian Act, relying on Indian agents to give us rations, and they would give us like flour, granulated sugar. And we just got introduced to this sedentary lifestyle and this really like processed diet.
Yeah, that was kind of the start, was moving away from our traditional diets and eating food like that, and then becoming dependent on those things as well. We were 100% sustainable before colonization. Our people have lived here for thousands and thousands of years without the help of governments, you know? And that's a scary statistic. 80% of Indigenous people may have type 2 diabetes within their lifetime. Like some people might think of that and see such a high number like that and think, well, there's no point in trying to eat healthy or whatnot now, because it's almost guaranteed that I'm going to have diabetes within my lifetime. My grandparents had diabetes, you know, but type 2 diabetes is preventable.
It's lifestyle related.
You can prevent type 2 diabetes with the change in your lifestyle, change in your diet, you know? So,
Yeah. So would you say like through decolonizing wellness, you need to also decolonize your diet and go back to our ancestral practices of like hunting and gathering and like growing a garden and like eating more traditional foods?
I think that those things can help, but obviously not everyone has that available to them, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone grew up with the teachings to go hunt and gather and stuff like that. But I think we need to be cognizant of what we put into our mouths, what we feed our bodies, you know? Like in some ways it's almost common sense, like eating natural foods that come from the earth and staying away from processed foods and like eating things like pizza, chips, and burgers. We all inherently know that those things aren't going to like be good for our bodies, right? And you hear elders say like, pray for this food to be medicine for us. It's kind of ironic when you look at like a bag of chips and if you start praying for that food to like be good for your body and be medicine for your body when you know it's not. So when you start showing gratitude and like praying for the food to nourish your body, your mind, and spirit, you're gonna start going towards healthier choices and pray to that food, you know, because you know that that food is medicine for your body, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's just making those conscious efforts. Like you can still buy food from the grocery store and be healthy, right? But it's like slowly making changes to like incorporate the healthiest foods into your bodies. And obviously like I like to splurge once in a while. I'll eat like a pizza from time to time, or I'll have a burger, but
Or a whole bag of salt and vin chips.
yeah, but it's not an all the time thing, right? And it's usually on our cheat days. We'll have like one cheat day a week. But as long as you're eating healthy majority of the time, I think you'll be okay. Right?
So is there a guide that you're going to be using to help guide you on this journey?
Yeah, so I made it a simple guide. Has a bunch of different aspects to it. So you'll see spiritual, culture, kinship, exercise, diet, sleep, and then inhibitors, things that I kind of want to stay away from. So I guess we'll just jump into the first aspect, not in any particular order. So the first thing I have on here is spiritual. So some of the things that fall under spiritual are ceremony, praying, smudging, and like meditating, you know, even just getting out on the land and like meditating out on the land, just finding that peacefulness, you know?
During my first year of university, I didn't have any access to like ceremonies or anything like that. And I had smudge, but I had roommates that didn't really know what it was. So I always felt like a little bit afraid of like lighting my sage and everything. And my sweetgrass wouldn't light either. So in order to like really balance my spirituality, it was as simple as just going for a walk outside in nature or just saying like a quick prayer.
Yeah, just those simple things helps you feel some kind of like balance again. Like I think without that aspect in our lives, like I can't speak on everybody, but I tend to feel anxious without that aspect in my life, that spiritual aspect.
Yeah.
I feel a lot of anxiety without it. So it's nice to have that in my life.
Yeah, I agree.
So the next thing I'm going to talk about is culture. And with culture, that's basically my identity as who I am as a Syilx man, as a Scale man, as an Okanagan man, if you don't know what that means. So like with culture, that's my mom, she has a lot of knowledge. She's taught me how to tan and scrape hides. She's taught me how to make drums. She's taught me how to just like go out on the land and like harvest and stuff like that. And then also my language, which is a big part of my life that I've been constantly trying to learn my language, but it's one of those things I just need to fully commit. And I feel like with decolonizing wellness, that's going to be an aspect of this journey, is fully committing to my language.
I've heard that if a language dies, then the people die with it too. Like the language is the way that you communicate. It's a huge part of your identity. And if your language goes extinct, then people go like your culture goes extinct with it.
And even with the language, like the Indigenous languages, it's a whole way of understanding. Our people had a reciprocal relationship with the land, and with this in Syilxian language, you see like that connection to the land and that like caring for the land, the timhulao, the timich, the animals. It's just without that language, we might not inherently understand what it means to be scaled, what it means to be seal, and for you, what it means to be Cree. So I agree. We can't lose those things.
I think that within this whole graph, I feel like culture is such an important part of it, especially when it comes to decolonizing, because our cultures and our languages and our ways of life were really disrupted from colonization. And yeah, I was going to say that like a lot of people don't really have access to it too. So it's a little bit hard. So for those that like don't have that access, sometimes it's as simple as just connecting with nature and learning your language.
The next thing on the list is kinship. And I feel like this is really important. It's a human need, is that connection to family and friends. Like a long time ago, if you didn't have some form of kinship or a tribe, you probably wouldn't make it, right? So, but nowadays, that's not necessarily a problem. But if you looked at statistics, it shows that people who are lonely tend to have higher mortality rates. It just goes to show you that people need that connection with friends and family and feel loved, you know? So that's something I want to touch on as well, is show my appreciation to my family and really have that time in my life. Like we get so busy that we stop connecting with our friends and family. And even COVID has done that to us. Like as my family, we used to connect and have big family dinners. And with COVID, we weren't able to have that. So I'm hoping now that things have settled down here in BC, that we can start connecting with our family members and whatnot, and connecting with our friends, you know? because that's really good for our well-being.
Yeah, really nurture those relationships and don't let them die, don't use this whole like we're all busy. We all have like jobs, we all have things to do, but I think it is like so important to never neglect your family.
I agree. So the next thing I want to talk about is exercise. And this is something that is super important for our well-being. Like if I don't exercise for even a few days, I feel like this anxious feeling in my body. And usually the only way I can get rid of it is if I go exercise. It's so simple, but sometimes I'll neglect exercising because I'm feeling so anxious. It's so weird.
Yeah.
But I feel like exercise not only for that, but it's so good for your heart. It's so good for your just overall well-being. And that's going to be a big one that I'm going to touch on as well, is incorporating a lot of exercise, and not necessarily just going to the gym, but being on the land, running, biking, swimming. Like we're training for a triathlon, and all three of those things in a triathlon, we can connect to the land, we can be on the land, And then also like calisthenics training, where I can just be outside and do push-ups, pull-ups, simple things without a gym. Not everyone has access to a gym, and there's ways around that. And then just like hiking, you and I go for hikes quite often, and it's just nice being out on the land and just getting that exercise and getting that fresh air.
Yeah. When it comes to like talking about decolonizing exercise, prior to colonization, Indigenous people were very fit people. Well, we had to be fit. We had to be strong. It was survival of the fittest. And we had like traditional trail runners who would like run from community to community relaying all these messages. We had like our men who like set up like, say, for Cree people, like the Sundance Lodge. Those are huge lodges that they needed to set up. And we never neglected our bodies either. We saw like our bodies are gifts. They're given to us for a short period of time, and they're temples. It's so important to take care of them, and to take care of them and exercise because it makes you feel well, not to achieve like a certain body type. I feel like in this Western society speaking from my own experience is when I first started getting into weightlifting in 2018, I did it for the wrong reasons because there was a certain body type that I wanted to achieve. And I used that as a motivator. While doing that, I realized how great exercise actually does make me feel. And now I feel like if you're going to be going on a wellness journey and you're incorporating exercise, I think it's so important to remember the reasons why you're doing it. And because if you're doing it to just achieve a certain look, a certain body type, I don't think it's gonna last long. I don't think you're gonna get the benefits. But if you exercise because it makes you feel good, then that's a lifetime of feeling well.
Like I use exercise because it's a very general term for moving our bodies. But if we really want to decolonize that word, then just moving our bodies in general. But I just use that because it's a very general terminology that everyone understands. Like exercise is just basically moving our bodies to be fit.
Even when you went hunting and you got a moose, that was over 1,000 pounds, right? And you had to haul that moose.
It was pretty heavy, and it took almost all day to get that moose into the back of the truck, and it was a lot of work. I was sore for days after that, and going to the gym and whatnot doesn't make me as sore as that. And yeah, it doesn't matter as long as you're moving your body in a healthy way. That's all that really matters,
Yeah.
So the next thing on the list is diet. So for me, that's going to be eating more traditional foods, drinking more water, and then also growing my own food. And I want to get some chickens as well because you and I eat a lot of eggs, 2 eggs a day. And then just making healthier choices when we go to the grocery store. And eating foods that are going to help us. Like I touched on earlier, is elders always tell us that we need to pray for our food, that it's medicine for our bodies. And I find it kind of ironic if we were to buy a bag of chips or like a greasy cheeseburger and then pray over that and say like, and ask for it to be medicine for our bodies, knowing that it doesn't have a good reputation for being good for our bodies. We know the effects that those things have on our bodies. Mm-hmm. So when you have that mindset that this food is medicine for my body, you're going to start making healthier choices. Mm-hmm. So throughout this journey, I want to think of food as medicine and then like help me with my goals. This food is going to help me accomplish my goal of finishing a triathlon. This food is going to help me live a long life so I can be healthy for my children, my grandchildren, and be the best me that I can be in my community, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel like food has a huge impact on how we live our lives and how well we live. If you're having like pains and aches and pains because of the food that you eat, that's going to affect your everyday life, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you eat things that are from the land, you become a part of that interconnected system with the land.
Mm-hmm. I've heard elders speak and say that we have this like inherent connection to the land because our ancestors have been eating from this land for thousands and thousands of years. So if you ever go to a place and you just feel like you belong there and you don't really know why, it's because that interconnected system of our ancestors getting nourishment from that land, it's become part of our DNA over thousands of years. So I've heard elders talk about that, and I thought that was really interesting.
That is interesting. I like that.
So the next thing I want to talk about is sleep. And with sleep, I think the goal for me is getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep because statistically that's been known to be the best for us. Mm-hmm. And then having a good sleep routine as well. Mm-hmm. Going to bed at a good time, waking up at a good time, and then limiting the amount of screen time I have before bed and stress before bed and settling down in a good way. Settle down in a good way before I rest my head at night. If we have a good routine, that helps with our circadian rhythm, which is a 24-hour cycle that we're a part of in our body's internal clock, running in the background to carry out essential functions and processes. One of the most important and well-known circadian rhythms is the sleep-wake cycle. So we have a good circadian rhythm, we'll feel good.
I feel like in like this day and age, it's like it's so easy to like lose sleep. You know, because like with our cell phones, we bring our cell phones to bed and then it has like that light. What's that? Do you know what that light's called? The blue light? Yeah, the blue light and everything. And it messes with like when our brain releases melatonin for us to get sleepy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely happened to me before. And sleep is so important because when you're sleeping, your body it's healing, it's repairing your muscles. It does something to your brain too.
I'm not an expert on this, but yeah, I've heard that there's like certain gray matter that you have in your brain, and when you don't sleep, you don't get rid of it. Mm-hmm. It'll add up in your brain. So when you sleep, it gets rid of it. I'm not an expert on that, but yeah, sleep is super important. Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes when we're not tired, it's because our day, we didn't have a good routine that day. Maybe we didn't exercise enough. Maybe we weren't eating healthy. We had too much stimulants that day. We were on social media too much and having too much going on in our subconscious mind. There's too much going on in the background, you know? So if we have a good day where we meditate, we exercise, we eat healthy, and we have like good routines in our life, I feel like that can be a huge difference in how we sleep at night, you know?
I agree. So decolonizing wellness is basically just using a two-eyed seeing approach to have all of these factors and balance all of them. Mm-hmm.
So those things are what I'm going to try to incorporate in my life. And in one way or another, I'm going to try and incorporate some of those aspects into my everyday life throughout this journey on decolonizing wellness. And then that leaves me with the inhibitors, the things that I want to avoid in my life, the things that aren't good for me, you know? Mm-hmm. So like alcohol, abusing tobacco, too much TV or cell phone, being around negative people, staying inside too much, living a sedentary lifestyle, drinking too much coffee. Like I've had that where I drink too much coffee and I feel like jittery and anxious, and that's not really a good thing. Yeah, and not eating enough good foods and eating poorly.
And then eating too much.
Yeah.
Too. basically what you said earlier, too much TV or cell phone. I feel like technology can be good, but at the same time it can also be a great inhibitor, which I am excited for episode 2 where we do our dopamine detox,
A dopamine
our
detox.
dopamine detox
But we'll get
because
deep into it, eh?
yes. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything else to say on the inhibitors. When you first applied for this, for the StoryHive grant and everything, I remember telling you that this is bigger than you. And, I feel like that is a great motivator, is knowing that this is like your purpose, basically. It's one of your purposes. And I truly feel from the bottom of my heart, and I believe that like nobody else can do this the way that you can do it. So that's why I think that you're the best person to do this.
Thank you. It's been real, and I'm looking forward to finishing, not necessarily finishing this decolonizing wellness journey, but starting it. And finishing it with TELUS STORYHIve, but that's not going to be the end of decolonizing wellness. I'm going to continue doing these things for the rest of my life. And I'm excited for that journey as well.
I'm excited to be a part of it too.
Aho.
Aho.